Yo, yo, what's going on? It's your boy Ata, Sidewalk and Gutter University, and what are we doing today is we gonna be reacting to a we're gonna the topic of we're gonna be reacting to a couple of videos, and the topic is black peace and prosperity and white accountability, and what we gonna do is we got this Donald Trump video and we got this Jordan Peterson video. So we're gonna react to the Donald Trump video first. I want you guys to check it out.
Coexistence with this violence. There can be no tolerating it, no accepting. There can be no coexistence with this violence. There can be no tolerating it, no accepting it, no excusing it, and no ignoring it. Every time a terrorist murders an innocent person and falsely invokes the name of God, it should be an insult to every person of faith. Terrorists do not worship God. They worship death. This is a battle between good and evil. When we see the scenes of destruction in the wake of terror, we see no signs that those murdered were Jewish or Christian, Shia or Sunni. We see only that they were children of God whose deaths are an insult to all that is holy. There can be no...
Okay. So that's that is that is Donald Trump right there, and that is his address just like a couple of days ago to the Muslim summit. It was a gathering of Muslim leaders from around the world, and they basically he basically addressed them and basically calling them out for terrorism, right? So the next one we doing is one of Jordan Peterson. So check this out. This is Jordan Peterson. And let me see. Jordan Peterson, you know what I'm saying? We're going to do it like this. Boom. We're going to do it like that. And here we go. Okay, so this is Jordan Peterson. Same kind of message. So check it out. Here we go, record.
Hi all. I've been informed by many sources and also observed online, not least because of my discussions with a variety of Muslim thinkers, supporters, and critics, that I have developed an audience in the Muslim world. I would first like to say that I could not be more pleased or honored that such is the case. It has been so heartening to see that my biblical lectures, for example, attracted a large Muslim audience, and that the comments from the Muslim watchers and listeners to my YouTube channel and podcast have been so extraordinarily positive. And all this is lovely to see in the aftermath of the extraordinary Abraham Accords, which have laid out the possibility for peace between all the people of the book in an unprecedented manner. And I have something to say as an extension of all of this. Please forgive my presumption, if you would. It is time for those of you in the Muslim world to stop fighting among yourselves, you Shiites and Sunnis, and also time to stop regarding the Christians, and even more specifically, the Jews, as your enemies. Why? Not least because you have the enemy located in the wrong place. First, the best place to find Satan, let's say.
So the first thing that's the issue with these addresses to Muslims, they're condescending, they're patronizing, they're paternalistic, and they have a tinge of arrogance in them. And what I mean by that is that the tone of their address, so Donald Trump and Jordan Peterson, the tone of their address to Muslims is basically saying, hey y'all, we gonna take it upon ourselves to address y'all, and if y'all fix what we tell y'all to fix, the problem will be solved, right? So it's similar in its context to like the war on drugs. So like the war on drugs was a thing back in the late 80s, early 90s, where the federal government they allocated money and resources and people and extra police forces and SWAT to ridding America's cities of drugs, right? But what it did what it didn't do is it didn't take into account that drugs didn't originate in America and that black people didn't bring drugs into the country. And so therefore it ignored white responsibility. And that's what this is doing right here. It's like saying, hey, Muslims, y'all got a problem and y'all better fix your problem. But it's not saying, hey, Muslims, we understand that you have a problem, and we understand that the role that we played as white nations, as Western European colonial countries in the creation of your problems, and this is how we're going to help you. So that's the first thing, because so it's a circumventing of onus and responsibility on the part of Western European countries.
Is within.
Or what the Nation of Islam called the white man.
If you think the true enemy is in someone else's heart, then you haven't thought nearly long enough about the darkness within. And you have therefore fallen prey to the most subtle temptation of the ancient demonic spirit. So your best bet on the spiritual warfare front is to make of yourself and your Muslim practice something so admirable that the light shining from your well-constituted psyches and productive, generous, and wise actions is so intense that people convert to your faith from sheer admiration. There's a goal.
And what he's saying is that's true. That evil in the world and peace in the world starts from the heart. If your heart, the heart is what defines human beings, and collective hearts define societies. So and then the other thing is about like being an example, being a living example. Jesus, peace be upon him, was a living example. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, a living example. And they transform people just by people being in their presence. The consciousness and the love that they radiated, it was enough to change people. So he's right on that point.
Second, far more unites you with the other people of the book, as your own prophet himself, peace be unto him, forthrightly said, than what divides you. You all believe, for example, in a book. You all believe, for example, in God, and believe that you have an ultimate duty to that God. You are all followers of a prophetic tradition. And that is a tradition that unites the wisdom of the past with the vision and voice of those willing to see and speak truly and lovingly in the present. And you are all threatened, in a very real sense, by the system of vengeful Luciferian ideas that currently confronts all that is transcendent, traditional, and valuable on the sexual front, on the familial front, on the conceptual front, on the psychological and sociological front, and, in the final analysis, on the theological front. So, how about we all quit squabbling over trinkets and details and face the real problem? And I should also point out that it is not the individual carriers of the woke, politically correct, degenerate, neo-Marxist ideas that should be regarded as the enemy either. First, we must take the idea that the satanic impulse within is the prime enemy with all due seriousness.
He's right.
Second,
he's right about that. It's to say all of our evil, all of our problems start from within, and that leads me. That's what's. So I'm gonna come back to that. A self-accountability on the part of white people and black people. That's the answer to all of our nation's problems, the world problems, global warming, wars, famine, disease. It all starts from within. He's right.
We must understand that even those quite possessed by the spirit of Cain that attracts and drives confused and lost people to the Luciferian ideologies of the materialist utopians are, in the ideal, fully redeemable and only partially consumed. Even the committed student ideologues who have, for example, attacked me and others like me rather viciously are generally, say, 90% or perhaps 80, reasonable and potentially civilized people who could still see the light. Muslims, reach across the sectarian divide. Shiites, find a Sunni pen pal. Communicate with someone on the other side. Sunnis, do the same. And then, maybe, reach out, tentatively, to a Christian, or even, heaven forbid, a Jew.
See, but this is okay. So he's what he's calling for is what's needed. I don't think he knows enough about Islamic history and like theology to say how. But what he's the what is coming from a good place. The thing that is problematic though is that one is he. So I think that a lot of people take modern, like really since like 1924 and the fall of the Ottoman Empire. So the fall of the Ottoman Empire was like the last Muslim polity, the caliphate on earth, and they're basically dealing with Muslim Judeo-Christian relations since 1924, like the modern age, and not taking into account that Muslim societies were cosmopolitan, they were diverse, they were tolerant, that they hosted a wide variety of religions, ethnicities, different thought, different schools of thought. Turkey, Egypt, North Africa, Spain, Iraq, West Africa, they all hosted, like, so for example, they all hosted different, they weren't monoliths, they all hosted different communities. Up until the creation of Israel, the Muslim countries hosted Jewish communities. Coptic Christians have lived alongside Muslims in Egypt for millennia. You have the Eastern Orthodox Christians, the Syriac Christians in Syria and Lebanon and Palestine, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. A sizable proportion of Palestinians are Christians. Let's go to Spain. Maimonides, arguably the greatest Jewish scholar in medieval history, lived in Muslim Spain. So Muslims have been. See, tolerance is built into our religion. The Quran tells us to respect Jews and Christians and live alongside of them as long as they don't try to persecute us and change us and change our religion. It doesn't like it. There's not a blanket obligation to fight against Jews and Christians. What we're dealing with is a modern phenomenon of not even Judeo-Christian, but a Zionist movement, a colonial Zionist movement, where the European colonial states, primarily France and Britain and America, have allied with Israel and assisted them in committing genocide and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians, which has created an enemy amongst Muslims. That's the part that you got to talk about. Let's keep going.
Because perhaps it is time for those who purport to be followers of God to act like it, and to be convincing in those actions, even to those whose premature cynicism and skepticism have driven them into the towers of Babel, constructed by the avatars of the resentful intellect. Is there someone in the Muslim world willing to build an electronic system to bring people from the Sunni and Shiite community together? A place where people of goodwill could reach electronically across the divide, person to person, and to formulate the kinds of personal, trusting friendships upon which a lasting peace truly might be founded? A place where Jews and Christians, willing and eager to open communication with their Muslim brothers, might do just that? There's a task for someone looking for a purpose, and it's an open invitation to do just that. If you build it, they will come. If you build it, get in touch with me. You'll figure out how to do it.
This is a good idea of like creating like a digital space where interfaith dialogue can take place. Great idea.
And I'll publicize it. Thank you, all my Muslim listeners, watchers, and readers, for your kind attention and patience. I wish you well as you strive to become the light in the world that your faith truly demands. Let's see if we can unite as people of the book and negotiate our way toward the paradise that we might truly and jointly attain.
Okay. So these are my closing thoughts about this. I've already kind of given you guys some backdrop on the role of white people, Western civilization, colonial powers. So when I say the white man, I'm referring to Western civilization, colonial power. So I'm not talking about like the Eastern Europeans. I'm not talking about Croatia or Albania or Greece. I'm talking about countries who had a hand in going around the world and persecuting and oppressing other people. So here's something that I think that first comes to mind is Donald Trump's and Jordan Peterson's address assumes that let me see. It assumes that Muslim dysfunctionality developed in a vacuum. So Muslims didn't wake up all of a sudden one day mad at the world for no reason. Like, so you got to take into account. So here's the thing: a lot of people are not aware of like the making of the modern Middle East. Britain and France conspired to take control of the modern Middle East. They promised Sharif Hussein, who was like a descendant of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who lived in Mecca. They promised him like to be the king of the Arabs. They promised him that, but they while simultaneously promising the Jews a national homeland and a Balfour Declaration. So what happened was, fast forward, that was in 1917 during the World War I. Fast forward, World War II. They promised them that, but then they signed Sykes-Picot Agreement, which is an agreement of between the French and the British to split upon the winning of World War I. They've agreed to split the Middle East up provinces up into like mandates that were governed by the British and the French. So then what happened was. So they signed these agreements knowing that they weren't going to honor them. They lied, and that takes us back to all the promises and the treaties that the American white man signed with the Native Americans. The Proclamation of 1763, the Indian Removal Act of 1830. Like these promises that, hey, we won't go past the Appalachian Mountains, or we won't go past the Mississippi River, or we'll honor our word, and never did. And the Sykes-Picot Agreement reminds me of the Berlin Conference when Otto von Bismarck, 1888, he invited the colonial heads of state to Germany to basically agree on how to carve up Africa, the scramble of Africa for its resources, diamonds, gold, you name it, and without any regard to the people there. Okay, so what I'm saying is white accountability. White accountability. What that means to me is white people need to have an open-hearted, sincere, and honest look at world history, acknowledging the crimes they committed and injustices they perpetrated against non-white people, and also the policies they adopted and the institutions and structures that remain in place that uphold such policies. and which result in the global north and the global south. The global north is like the former colonial powers who are economically, politically, and militarily superior to the global south, which are the former colonial powers who basically just had a late start in a race, in a global economic race. I mean, like, yeah, they just had a late start, so their economies are less developed, right, and thus their standard of living is lower. Former colonial countries, these are white countries, right? Need to so what that looks like is former colonial countries acknowledging how its exploitation put former colonies behind economically. And then that, to me, that should lead to official apologies. Hey, like France should apologize, like formally a written government document saying, hey, our former colonies, like so let me finish. And then so it should lead to formal apologies, and then that should lead to formulating a plan to help that were former colonial powers formulate a plan to help its former colonies develop sustainably. What I call a rectification plan. So Spain in the Spanish-speaking world, the United Kingdom and Hong Kong, Jamaica, India, New Zealand, South Africa, Kenya, Egypt, Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Ghana, Zambia, Sudan, the United States and Native Americans, right? The United States and Iran and Iraq. The United States has a moral and political responsibility to the people of Iraq because our country waged war on the Iraqis for a lie. They lied and said Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, knowing that he didn't. They got over there a year later. They announced on the news that he didn't, but they knew that he didn't in advance. So here's another case in point. So the Belgium owe Congo, France owes Haiti, French West Africa, North Africa, Syria, and Vietnam. Now now what I mean by Western accountability. What case study comes up is the United States and Iran in 1953 and Iran's independence. So after World War II in 1948, former colonies were gaining their independence. So Iran gained its independence from England. In 1953, they had a free and fair election, one man, one vote. They voted in a person called Mohammed Mossadegh. Mohammed Mossadegh was a nationalist, which means he wanted to use. That's what most Americans are. They want to use our country's resources to put our country forward. Iran first, Iran for the Iranians. That's what Mohammed Mossadegh's platform was. Guess what happened? The United States and the United Kingdom, the CIA and the MI6, Kermit Roosevelt's Theodore Roosevelt's nephew, executed a Operation Ajax to oust Mohammed Mossadegh from office. He says this is look, and then they installed the Shah of Iran, a dictator. They basically deposed a democratically elected head of state and put in his place a dictator. So then that makes you say, damn, all the shit that American and the Western civilization talks about democracy, are they really for democracy? Because you know why? You know why they did that? Because of the oil that Iran had. Iran probably has the second largest, or probably the second or third largest oil reserves in the world after Iraq and Saudi Arabia. So then it says, is it democracy? Is it freedom? Or is it money? Is it economics? Right? That's the part that Jordan Peterson and Donald Trump does not address. The duplicity, the hypocrisy, the shysting, the gangsterism that goes into it. It's not just, they talk all these big ideals, but when it comes down to it, it's like, we got bigger guns, we want your stuff, give it to us or we'll shoot you. And it's gangster shit. That's what it really boils down to. So I say all that to say, why? And then his question is, how does this relate to black peace and prosperity? Because if white people are accountable and are honest, that would enable black people to have peace and prosperity. Because what white people do in the Middle East, what they do in Asia, what they do in South America, they also do in Africa, and they do domestically in the ghettos and are in the inner cities or in predominantly black people. What I'm saying is white people have a standard modus operandi that they apply across the board when they're dealing with non-white people that needs to change. That's what we're calling for. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم إنه هو الغفور الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر.